Hello and welcome to PoE Bad Builds. False Prelate here. Today I'd like to showcase a build that I made for the Flashback League. Essentially this is a non-crit Ethereal Knives Poison build using the Ring of Blades Viridian Jewel. So the idea here was I wanted to try and see if I could do some sort of poison build without going crit and without using Assassin. So the big draw of the crit builds is that you get to use the perfect agony keystone, and so without crit you don't have access to that. And I'll kind of talk about this build a little bit and its power and what I think needs to really happen to non-crit poison to make it viable with spells. Okay, so let's talk about some of the gear that's used. First thing first is the Ring of Blades unique jewel. This makes it fire in a nova in a circle around you and adds extra projectiles. This is really good. As you can see in the footage, it has a pretty big coverage on the screen, which allows you to clear maps very, very quickly and very efficiently. This build also makes use of the Light Poacher Great Crown. So this helmet sends out a nova of physical spell projectiles, similar to the EK, and they actually have the ability to poison as well. So this synergizes very, very, very well with EK. So basically the helm expends what are called spirit charges, and you have a chance to gain these on kill, and you can increase the number of charges that you can get by having more abyssal jewels in your build. So the helm has one abyssal jewel slot, and then on this particular build I have a Stygian belt that gives me one, and one on my skill tree, so I can store up to 3 charges. Neither Ethereal Knives nor the Spirit Burst from the Light Poacher have a chance to pierce naturally. So we pick up a Horn Talisman to allow both of those skills to pierce without having to waste gem links on a pierce gem or spend extra points on the skill tree to pick it up. Another item that synergizes really well with this build is the Writhing Jar. So because we are a Pathfinder and we're constantly getting flash charges, we can keep these up pretty easily. And these actually do 2 things. So first, it helps keep our virulent stacks with our Herald of Agony up. And also, it helps us gain charges for our Light Poacher helm. Speaking of the Herald of Agony, the Scourge Claw helps scale the damage really, really well. So the nice thing about this item is that increases and reductions to minion damage apply to you. And this kind of works as like general all damage. So yes, it scales our Herald of Agony, but it also helps scale both our EK and the poison damage on our EK. The Embalmer Carnal Mitts are another item that synergizes really, really well with this build. So it does a couple of things. First, we have a free level 20 Vile Toxins. This is great because it allows our Herald of Agony to run on a 5 link without having to use a Shaper item. Another thing that it does is it has increased poison duration. This makes each of our poisons last just a little bit longer, and considering we stack them up so quickly, it actually ends up adding quite a bit of DPS to our build. For our belt slot, we're using a Stygian Vise that has increased flask charges gained. The benefit here is that you'll be able to keep your flasks up more often, and you'll have more worm flask charges that you could use to spam if you need to get more virulent stacks or if you want more spirit charges out. And the extra abyssal socket gives us 1 more charge for our Light Poacher. For the rest of our gear, we're just looking for rare items that have life, resistances, mana regen. Definitely you're going to want to get some chaos resist on some of your gear. You might need some strength and dex to use certain items. For our shield, we'd probably just use something with global physical damage on it, because spell damage doesn't scale poison. Cast speed isn't really necessary because we're using Unleash, but it does feel good. And definitely you're going to want life on those items as well. And for boots, you're just looking at something with a high movement speed roll and life and resistance. Okay, so let's take a look at our gem setup. So we have an Ethereal Knife set up in our body armor with Vile Toxins. Vile Toxins, it helps scale both the poison and the hit damage, which is what we're trying to do here. Lesser poison helps get us to 100% chance to poison. Unleash actually works really well for this build because it constantly allows you to be building charges when you're not attacking, and actually they do poison, so they help you build virulent stacks really quickly as well. Added Chaos just helps increase the damage, and Energy Leech, we don't have a lot of Energy Shield, so it's not actually doing anything defensive for us, but you're pretty much always leeching Energy Shield, so you'll get that big damage bonus, and that's a general damage bonus, so it applies to both Poison and our hit damage. For our Herald of Agony setup, we have damage on full life. This works all the time because our Herald of Agony is not losing health. We have Vicious Projectiles, which is just a big damage multiplier. We have Onslaught, and Onslaught, you could say this could be switched out for something else. It basically works the same way as Minion Speed, except it doesn't have nearly as high of a mana multiplier, and it's up pretty much all the time. And then we also have Vile Toxins, which are in the Embalmer Gloves. We also utilize an Immortal Call setup, with cast and damage taken, increased duration, and summon Lightning Golem. Basically, the only thing that's going to be constantly and reliably killing this character is heavy physical damage hits. So Immortal Call with increased duration is absolutely mandatory. In our Helm slot, we only have 3 gem sockets because we lose 1 socket because of the Abyssal Jewel. And so what we're doing here is we're putting in support gems to support the Spirit Burst. So on this setup, I have Energy Leech, Life Leech, and Added Chaos. And basically the idea here is I want a little bit extra survivability with the Life Leech. I'm getting most of my damage from other sources, so just having a little bit of Leech in the setup is a good idea. In our Claw, we have a pretty standard shield charge setup with Fortify and faster attacks. And we have a Clarity Enduring Cry Convocation setup. Clarity is just because the mana cost of EK is so high. Enduring Cry to keep up those endurance charges, and Convocation because it's really good to be able to summon your Herald of Agony to you whenever you need to do so. Alright, let's talk about pros and cons. So the biggest pro is that it does have a fast clear speed, especially in the Flashback League where you're getting a lot of things stacked up on each other. You can get a ton of spirit charges out really fast. Definitely with breaches and abysses, it's just awesome. Unfortunately, the single target damage is really low, and on large health bosses, and even some rares and like Kavas memories that have a lot of health, it can feel pretty slow at times. One other good thing is that you dodge most hits, so you have a Quartz Flask up that's up pretty much all the time because you're a Pathfinder, and it gets increased effectiveness, so you have like 12% dodge and spell dodge from that, and then you have the dodge and spell dodge from the tree as well, so most things aren't hitting you. But then again, when things do hit you, you can often get one shot, and definitely high physical damage enemies are going to be a really big pain. This build is very visually appealing. You've got the green, I have an MTX on, so it looks even better, but you have the green EK going out with the green spirit charges, and you've got the Herald of Agony shooting green projectiles too. It's just, it all looks really good together. Probably one of the biggest cons is that this build does require a lot of uniques. And I think in general with Poison, the way it is right now, it's very difficult to play Poison without having very specific gear, which makes it kind of difficult to play in like hardcore leagues or solo self-found leagues where this kind of gear might not be as readily available. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the skill tree and some of the things that I think need to change to make non-crit Poison actually viable. So we start off by coming down here and getting some life. Picking up this node is really important because you can get the stun avoidance. And then Ballistic Mastery is really important because it helps get the proj speed up and your EK Nova goes further out. This node here, Primal Spirit, and this node, Druidic Rite, are really important because they help with your flask uptime. And then we come down here for our first poison nodes. Getting these helps us get to 100% chance to poison on hit. Then we pick up some life, some more life up here. This node's important. This is where we get our Ring of Blades, Viridian Jewel. And then this is optional, I think, the Acrobatics and Phase Acrobatics. I was playing for a while without it. You lose a little bit of block chance and a little bit of armor, but I think this definitely increases survivability, so I would recommend taking it. Then we have our Fatal Toxins, which again helps us get capped out on chance to poison on hit and gives us poison damage. Some more life. This node's really good too because there's a chance to deal double damage. Just good value anyway. And then this part of the tree is pretty standard. It's just physical damage to scale the EK and the poison damage, and same thing up here. And then coming over here, this is just to get more life and cast speed, and a little bit of minion damage because we have the Scourge Claw. This one here is just an Abyssal Jewel for the Spirit charges. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what the issue is here with this side of the tree. So most crit builds go Perfect Agony. Modifiers to critical strike multiplier also apply to damage multiplier for ailments from critical strikes at 30% of their value. 30% less damage with hits. Okay. Now, the problem here is that with non-crit poison, you have no way to scale the damage with a multiplier. And so by not taking this node, you're basically stopping yourself from scaling your damage to a higher potential. I think a good alternative to this would be is if around this area, maybe on this side across from it, they had kind of like an elemental overload style node where you could get no chance to crit, but then it scaled you, like gave a multiplier to chaos damage scaling. And we kind of have this anyway, this non-chaos damage over time multiplier, except it's non-ailment. So you can't actually use this on a non-crit poison build. But if you had a keystone here that allowed you to benefit from this, like if it was like no crits, but non-ailment chaos damage over time multiplier applies to you, I think that would be a really good way to balance out poison and give a little bit more flexibility in pathing. Well, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. There's a path of building link in the description, and if you like what you saw, then please like and subscribe. Have a great one.